It's gonna get real ugly.
You're listening to PHP Ugly, episode 148. I'm John Congdon, and with me tonight is Eric Van Johnson.
Hello.
I need to talk like that, like just all the time. Don't need my normal voice. Hey, guess who's not with us tonight?
This is so weird.
You're
listening to, just by the way, Mr. Radio Voice doesn't like to do the intro correctly, but you're listening to one of the premier developer podcasts recorded in Southern California on a Thursday night. We've done our metrics and we are one of the top ones. I don't care what the police reports say.
There are so many qualifiers on that. It's not funny.
You know, it's all about being the best.
So is this the first episode that Thomas hasn't been on?
Great question. So first off, thank you everybody for joining us. If you're a regular show listener, Thomas is not with us today. To answer your question, John, technically no. If you recall, you and I recorded a live show at PHP.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So technically, this is his second missed episode, but this is probably his first missed episode where he actually missed it because of his reasons and not because
we forced him out.
Yeah.
To be clear, he was invited to that one. He just refused to get on a plane.
This is true. We couldn't overcome all the technical hurdles to virtually get him on there either.
So we can finally have a short episode. This is what
Thomas
I'm talking about.
Thomas is okay. I mean, it has to be something pretty serious for Thomas to miss a show, but he is okay. But yes, he does have something pretty serious going on, and he's gonna miss a show.
But he's still gonna edit, right?
No, I doubt it. Mister, I'll have episode 147, out by Monday morning. Yeah.
I'll have it done by Sunday.
Yeah, you're right. Actually, he did say Sunday. Yeah. So this is weird. Like, I don't know what to talk to you about. Like, we see each other every day, all day long. It's like, what do we speak about?
I don't know. But I know you haven't been feeling well this week. So I'm happy tonight.
Yeah, it's been a really rough week for me. I was even telling Thomas when he let us know he wasn't going to be on the show. I'm like, man, I was really hoping you were going to carry the show because I've been coming into the office or been working in the mornings until about noon, 1, 2 o'clock. And then I've been like, my body has just been completely crashing after that. Today was no exception. I actually went home probably around 3 o'clock and slept until 7. Yeah, I feel like I'm getting better though. Like I'm feeling better. I'm feeling I'm on the tail end of it. But yeah, it's been a rough week.
And I can picture that conversation with him now. Thomas, I was really hoping you'd carry the show because John can't, and I'm not feeling well.
Yeah. pretty much right on, yeah. We did have a fun week. If we want to give away some spoilers, we did have a fun week. We got to interview.
Taxes.
We got to pay taxes.
That's not what you're talking about. Sorry.
Let's circle back on that. I would like to touch on that, but we did get to interview Chris Hart. How do you say his last name?
Hartgest.
Grumpy programmer. If you follow him on Twitter. What a cool
the odds
guy.
are the odds are he does not follow you.
Yeah, pretty sure he doesn't follow you. But what a cool guy.
So we were trying to get in touch with him, and you're like, see if he follows you so we can direct message him about interviewing. And we go and look, and I think he follows 14 people.
Yeah.
But he has so many followers. It's crazy.
Yeah. We interviewed him for the PHP Architect podcast, the PHP podcast, which is the podcast for the PHP Architect magazine. So that should probably be getting released any day now. I got that edited and sent over to the editor of PHP Architect this tonight, actually. I just got it sent over to him, so he typically reviews it, and then he'll usually publish like on a Monday or Tuesday. So I imagine you'll see it next week. But good show. That podcast is starting to grow on me. It was weird because it's like when we approached PHP Architect about potentially doing a podcast for them, they were like, they liked the idea, but they didn't know what they wanted. And we were kind of like, well, we don't really know how we want to do it, but we think, we think it would be cool for you guys to have one. And we've been doing it now for, somebody say like 2 years? Are we going on 2 years now? We're on episode 19.
It must be, because it was tech 2 years ago that we started the conversation.
Mm.
And it took a couple months after tech before we got started. So yeah, it's been that long. It's crazy.
Wow. That's crazy. That's crazy.
I remember our first couple where they were scripted and just horrendous.
Not horrendous, but no, it was a different format. Yeah. Well, the idea was that it was going to be a 15-minute show. Like I really wanted to be 15 minutes and then like a 10-minute interview, and the whole show was to be under 30 minutes. And once I realized that was never going to happen. So.
All right. What else? You wanted to circle back to taxes.
So you said taxes. Here in the U.S., I'm always curious how other countries do taxes, but here in the U.S., it's tax day. Or not, today's tax day. Tax day was back on Monday, and we were actually lucky because typically the 14th, but the 14th was a Sunday, so...
No, it's always the 15th.
Is it always the 15th? Oh, I thought it was always the 14th.
No, it's the 15th unless the 15th is a holiday or weekend.
So let me ask you a question. As a small business owner, and for those of you who aren't aware, John and I are business partners. As a small business owner, do you have any different view on taxes? Like, besides the fact that you pay more in taxes now, do you have?
Thanks Trump. No, we made out on taxes this year.
Well, we actually did good, not only because of Trump, but because of Wave PHP.
Well, there's that. So we took a huge loss on that. So we had a bigger write-off. And then because of the tax cuts to small businesses, we didn't have to pay as much taxes there, which is phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
But to answer your question, being a small business owner, paying taxes is a completely different mindset than being an employee where the money's just taking out of your paycheck. If everyone had to put the money in their bank and then write a check, whether it was quarterly or however often you had to write a tax check, you would have a completely different appreciation for it.
Mm-hmm.
When it's just being withheld, you just assume, okay, here's my take-home pay. And I remember back, especially when I was younger, I relied on that refund check at tax time every year, because it was always, I think, around $1,000 that I'd get back, and that was my vacation money. It's when we'd get to go do something. And then I started talking to people that were a little older and a little wiser than me about money, and they're like, "Why are you giving the government a loan? You're basically giving them money for free and asking them to hold it and give it back to you next year."
Mm-hmm.
That's because, one, I'm like most people, I was terrible with managing my money. If I had to put, whatever it be, $100 a week, I guess is what or $100 a month away for that $1,000 at the end of the year, I probably wouldn't have done it. I would have spent it throughout the year and not had that money. So I think as a whole, people need to be better about managing their money, better at budgeting and, spending appropriately, not living up to your means, hard as it can be, and really looking at that tax money that you're spending. It's just, like I said, just a completely different mindset.
Yeah, it really is. And it's weird because we have to pay personal taxes, and we have to pay taxes for the business. And the taxes for the business is always this weird thing, because it's like, I feel like I'm paying taxes on money that, like, I never actually get to. It's like it's company money, and it's just this weird thing for me that it's hard to it's hard. I discovered it's kind of hard to explain to the family. It's like, yeah, I pay, all in all, I had to pay this much in taxes, but most of that was for business. And it's like, it's not like I have that income. Like, I wish I had the income for the taxes we're paying, but we don't have that. You know what I mean?
Yep, I'm there with you.
So
It's hard to explain to other people. Being a for-profit business, you put money back into the business to keep funding it, or to grow it, or to have money for whatever future investments, or however you need, whatever expenses you're saving for, and basically you still have to pay taxes on that money.
you got to keep money around to pay people and things like that. So yeah, and like you said, you have to.
I try every pay period. I try not to pay people, and they get mad at me.
It's so weird how they get so touchy about that.
I know.
John, I have a sick kid. I have a house payment. I have a boat I want to buy. Hello?
You get to hang out with us. Come on. That should be payment enough.
They're great people. And I don't have a boat. I'm not even interested in a boat. Although I keep trying to tell John we need a plane. He won't let me buy a company plane.
They cost money.
Yeah.
Boy.
But so yeah, John, I mean, you've got to talk development talk this week, because I have not been doing a whole lot of anything.
I am super excited to say that the main project I work on, officially as of this week, 100% PHP 7.3.
That is
7.3.
amazing. That's amazing.
A long way coming. Finally got the green light to start writing PHP 7 code, because for the longest time PHP 7 was on, a portion of the servers. So you can't write 7 specific code because it's going to blow up on the servers still running 5.6. So finally worked through any of the lingering issues, and ready to move forward.
Nice. Wow, what a just absolute long game that's been for you.
Yeah. But yeah, have a great team of people that pitched in, and the next step is, they're still using a library that was written for PHP 4 to do the database layer. And it's so hard-coded, not hard-coded. It's such a dependency within the system. Why can I not think of the term? What am I thinking of, Eric? Where it's tightly coupled. Jeez. That's what I'm looking for. So much of the code base is tightly coupled to this ancient library that I added it to the code base so that we could manipulate it. We can make changes to it without fear of losing that. And it's nothing that I would contribute back to the community, because one, it's dead. It's not a maintained package. So now there's a lot of work being done to finally strip that out. But it's hard because you're doing a cost benefit analysis of, we want to make this change, but end users, customers aren't going to necessarily see the benefit. So you've got to do a lot of work up front for the gain to be in development time in the future.
Mm-hmm. So I got a question for you. Obviously, most of our business, matter of fact, all of our business is centered around PHP. We do some operations stuff, some sysadmin stuff. Obviously, we have some JavaScript front ends and things like that. But PHP is the core of our business. I personally love coding in PHP. I've been doing it for so long. I have moved on from the whole feeling like I have to defend it to other developers who want to use other languages. Just like I'm not having this argument anymore. But I was recently listening to a podcast, and they were talking about how the demise of PHP has been predicted for so long, and yet it has not died. And their theory is now, with the separation of front end and back end development, and it really has become a much easier thing to separate out, that they think that now is the time that we'll finally see PHP start to die on the vine as companies start to really separate front end and back ends, with front ends going more JavaScript frameworks and libraries like Vue, React, Angular. Back ends going more of the direction of maybe a Python or one of these newer languages. I still don't see that. I'm like, I don't understand why you wouldn't continue. I do see the separation of front end and back end, but why PHP doesn't still factor into that? Is there something I'm missing? What do you feel on this?
I still don't understand all the gripes. I understand where PHP came from, but PHP's matured so much in the past 2 decades that that's really not a strong point. It's still widely available, actively growing itself as a language. I see it having a place for a long time to come. Even with the separation, there's still back end code, and not every site is going to go to a full SPA type of application.
Yeah.
And even if they did, you still have to have something on the back end for your API calls. I suppose you could get away with having stuff in Lambda, up in AWS. You have databases available via like a Firebase or some other cloud-based one, but I still think there needs to be code on the back end somewhere, and there's no reason that I don't see PHP going away.
I agree with you, and I also don't understand people's desire for it to die. It's like, why is this such a mission for so many people?
So morbid, like it's got to be gone. No, it's got such a place.
The closest I think I obviously when not obviously, but when Rails really took off, I saw a lot of potential of it chewing into the PHP ecosystem, and I'm sure it did. But end of day, if you ever worked with Rails, especially back then, this would have been
20 years ago.
Yeah, 20 or so years ago. It was a pain in the ass to get running on a server. I mean, you had versioning issues. You had, this stuff wasn't installed by default on systems, and it was not easy to get up and running consistently on the server.
See,
which is
the funny thing is I came from a Perl background. I had a multi-million-dollar a month website, not mine personally. I worked for somebody that had that, unfortunately, where everything was written in Perl. I grew up writing Perl backend sites, and I learned about PHP, started switching to PHP. At the same time, a very good friend of mine got who got me into Perl, got me into web development in general. He went off somewhere else and started using Ruby, and he came back to me. He's like, "This is the way to go. You need to understand Ruby, active record. You know, their whole database structure is amazing. You need to start learning this."
And keep in mind, for the time, it was really cutting edge. Active Record was huge. The bundler, which is basically PHP's now composer, but Rails had it first. They had this whole idea of bundling these little packages and being able to pull in packages, and they did it, and they did it well. So it there was a lot of appeal to developers.
Yeah, I never went down that road. I never got into writing Ruby. It was basically a choice I had to make. I'd already started down the road of PHP. I had started the rewrite process when he introduced me to it, and I was just like, nope, I'm gonna stay on this road. Obviously, now I'm happy I did.
Yeah, I probably did a solid year of just straight Rails development. Now this was before I was a professional developer. It was all my little coding projects that I was doing on the side, and I decided, I was going to go the route of Rails. I liked the whole idea of the framework. It was the first time I was introduced to the framework, and to this day, you've heard the story before, John, I'm sure, but to this day, I credit that fact for me becoming a better PHP developer, because I it was I remember I was trying to learn object-oriented programming in PHP, and I couldn't get my head around it. Like I was a self-taught PHP developer, you know, logic was all in line, and I was trying to understand where to write functions. I was trying to understand why you created classes, and I was just struggling so hard with it, and I couldn't get my head around it. And it was about that time I decided I came across Rails. I'm like, oh wow, I really like this whole structure they have, the framework they have. And because I didn't know Ruby like I knew PHP, I was very dependent on understanding the Rails framework and doing things the Rails framework way. And so that is what taught me object-oriented programming. It's like I had no choice. I had to learn it that way with Rails. And once I got that concept down, it was so easy for me to then apply it back to PHP. And I remember, like, especially near the end of my Rails development, I remember thinking to myself, I could do this so much faster in PHP. Like, I know what I want to do in PHP. I just wish I could find a framework like Rails. And that's when I actually started looking for frameworks in PHP that were similar to the Rails framework in Ruby. And I stumbled across a couple. That's where I got started with Cake, and then once I switched back, there was no I totally I almost that day. It's not even like I kept trying to keep up with Ruby, because so many things were changing in the Ruby ecosystem. I think they were doing a major upgrade to Ruby or to Rails, and I just couldn't keep up. And so it was almost like in one day I just decided to go back to PHP and didn't look back. So it's not a terrible thing to take up another language. To this day, I still do Python programming. Occasionally, I enjoy Python programming. I wish I had more of a reason to do more of it. I look for reasons to do Python programming, but I'm not very good at it. Definitely not the level I am with PHP. But it's always good to have another language.
Another language I've only hacked in. I've never written anything in it. I've used it for various things, but always got very confused, especially with the whole Python 2 versus 3 and what was installed. There was so much confusion around it. And again, being a web developer, and that's really how I grew up in coding professionally. I did plenty of coding prior for fun, but actually getting paid to write stuff, never got into how to install something like Python, you know, or how to get it working within a web server. At the time, really would have only been Apache. So not having the fact that I could just have PHP up and running, I just stayed there.
Yeah.
Same thing with C, C++. I could read it. I could get in there and hack it. When it came to debugging, like you've talked about, I can look at code and kind of figure it out, but to sit down and write it just was not going to happen. So moving on from that, I've spent a lot of time lately running after security issues.
That's always
it's challenging. There's lots of tools out there that will try and break your website, and using those, I've been able to find a lot of issues in this application. But we take the report and we submit to Salesforce, and then they came back and somehow they found lots of other issues down to versions of libraries. That's never fun. Trying to upgrade jQuery that you're afraid to touch, or you're relying on dependencies of jQuery of older versions, and anyway, such a nightmare. But it had me going down the road of XSS, and most of those problems are easy to solve. Sanitizing, filtering your input, escaping your output.
You're talking about cross-site scripting, right? XSS.
Yeah, XSS, cross-site scripting. While I'm doing some research, what comes across my YouTube feed today? But Google has had a cross-site scripting vulnerability for months. It was like November or sometime last year up till I think February of this year. But the way this video went about explaining it is just fascinating, that people can take the time to figure out that this will break. If you put tags in this order, or you just tweak these couple of characters, and then all of a sudden there's a vulnerability there. It's fascinating.
Yeah, I was watching that video. You shared it in the company Slack, and I was watching that video. Yeah, it amazes me how people find that stuff.
Basically, I mean, when you're doing testing, you use an alert box, because as soon as you see the alert box, it worked, right? But when you step back and you think about, wait, where I put that alert box, I could put any code and have it run on your machine. I can put code on your machine that you would never see, or I can now make you do a Google search that you didn't mean to do because you're on Google. It's just absolutely astonishing.
Yep.
But
and all it takes is a well-crafted URL for somebody to click on it.
Yeah. And the way this one worked was you'd go to the URL and nothing would happen until you clicked into the search box. And then I guess at that point, Google was they were trying to do some sanitization of the string, yet somebody was able to craft it where even when you sanitized it, it still caused a vulnerability. So I highly recommend going and watching this video. It opened my eyes onto how parsing works a little more in depth, ways of filtering your input. They're recommending you should actually do the filtering on your JavaScript side, because I'm so used to, I'll let them put it into the field, and as soon as they submit it to my server, that's where I'll parse it, right? But I did find an issue in the application that I work on, that we were taking in whatever they put into the field, and immediately pushing it back out into the DOM versus. So it did two things. You save it to a field, it would send it to the server and show something in the DOM. So yes, I was filtering what was sent to the server side, but we show it show a little box saying, we're now doing this, and there's an XSS vulnerability.
That's crazy. Yeah, I got the video playing. Didn't mean to play the video. Stop video. Don't play. Stop playing. Hey, it's still playing. It's like a virus. It won't stop. There it goes. Yeah, that was crazy. That was absolutely crazy. So we'll have that in the show notes as well.
Yeah. Love learning about that stuff.
Yeah.
Before you go on, I want going back to our interview with Chris. We're interviewing him for the PHP podcast, but the whole subject was the fact that he is the subject chair or the track chair for PHP Tech.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not already planning on attending, I'll give him a free commercial because I love what Eli does and the whole PHP Architect team putting on PHP Tech. They changed the format this year to where they hand-picked, I forget how many people, but they basically are the chair for their track. So Grumpy or Chris Arches is doing the testing track, which makes perfect sense. He's got 7 to 8 hours of material. So I guess he gets one track for a full day. And then they have other tracks like professional PHP and API development. If you're not already going to tech, please consider going. I'm going to be out there. Come and say hi.
He'll be out there. He'll have PHP Ugly stickers with him. So be sure to say, hey, I listened to PHP Ugly. Can I have a sticker?
Maybe I'll have some fun. I still have a bunch of the buttons.
You have buttons? You have the physical buttons?
Yeah, I still have a few of those.
Oh, there you go, PHP Ugly listeners. Track John down at Tech in this month, right?
No, May.
Oh, May. End of May.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like 4 or 5 weeks away.
Yeah, track John down and tell him you want a sticker or you want a button. So
chances are I'll say, sorry, don't have any buttons. Here's a sticker.
We were talking a little bit about frameworks earlier, and we covered it on the show months ago about how Zen has started to focus on the server, their server component, and where that left all the other projects, the framework, and a couple of the other products that they had. And it sounds like now that that's getting picked up by the Apache Foundation, I think it is.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and they're actually spinning it off to it's called I don't even know how to pronounce this.
Laminas?
Laminas, is that it? Laminas? Yeah. I don't know. I mean,
Matthew Ruffini, I believe, is continuing on with that project.
How do you feel about this? So the project encompasses the various standalone components, the MVC framework, App Agility, which is a fantastic project that came out of Zen for APIs. I never did that deep of a dive into it, but man, it was really appealing when I was getting into API development. And then the expressive the expressive sub project. How do you feel about this?
Prior to our interview with Chris, I didn't really give it much consideration. I felt like I used Zen Framework back when it was Zen Framework 1, very briefly. I was trying to get a legacy code base into a framework, and this was one of the ones I tried. It was right around the time one was changing to two, so it kind of just came and went from my consciousness. And when I started seeing everyone picking up Laravel, that just seemed like the way to go. So a lot of our newer projects picked up Laravel and continued along. So I figured Zen Framework was just going to go bye-bye, just like all the others. And then talking with Chris, he brought up such a great point that when you only have a single framework, you have something to worry about.
Mhm.
And maybe that's why Ruby never really took off, because it had a single Rails framework that everyone was using.
Mhm.
It was just it was kind of an eye opener. Like, wow, we probably should have these other frameworks around and continue to grow, and not have a singular popular one, especially with the way Laravel has this knack of just breaking. You try to upgrade it, and all of a sudden your code stops.
Mm.
Or you getting pigeonholed into a specific version because you can't upgrade or don't want to take the time to upgrade.
Right. I think my opinion of it was so the biggest gripe we have with Laravel is the idea that well, there's a couple of grapes we have, right? It's the fact that it's kind of a single developer framework, as far as Taylor kind of makes all the decisions on what goes in and when it goes in and how it goes in. It's not really a community framework. I mean, community people contribute, but end of day, Taylor is kind of the dictator over the framework as to how things get implemented. That's one component. That's not that horrible. The one that we struggle with, especially as a business, is the idea that it is a community supported framework. So there is, we joke about the enterprise aspect of Laravel, and these are all the components that Zen had. The Zen framework had when it was part of the Zen company, is that it was enterprise ready, right? It had the support, it had the training, it had the professional services, it had all that. Now it doesn't. Now it's just another community framework, and it's where I hear what you're saying, as far as we don't really want that one framework out there. We don't really have that one framework out there. We have a lot of alternatives, good alternatives. I mean, the Symfony components are what make up Laravel, and Symfony is still out there. It's still a viable solution. You have others, Cake, I mentioned earlier, is still out there. So it's like, I wonder if we need another community framework. I think companies that invested in the Zen framework and might not have taken advantage of the professional support want to see this, because they would rather have a community framework continue down the road than no framework at all.
Mm-hmm.
But we were again talking to Grumpy about it, and I mean, Zen has really, I mean, it's so head and shoulders over any other framework out there right now. I don't know. I guess what I'm saying is I don't see myself using it. Maybe old Zen developers will embrace it and continue down the road. I just don't know if we have a need for another community framework. I think we have a need for another company framework, like one that's supported like Symfony. Because if you think about it, I mean, unless I'm missing something obvious, Symfony now is the only one that kind of meets those criteria for being enterprise ready.
Well, I was going to say that they were picked up as a source project on the Linux Foundation, not Apache.
Oh, that's right. Cool.
But it's an open source project hosted at the Linux Foundation. Does that mean Linux Foundation is supporting it via any sort of monetary contribution?
I believe that's what I read. I think there's some monetary contribution there. Let's see if I can find that. I thought it was on this page. But yeah, I mean, that is to say something. Like the Linux Foundation does have financial backing. So,
and maybe it does become that enterprise piece. Maybe they'll be able to offer support at some point.
that would be interesting.
It there's nothing saying that an open source project can't be enterprise ready. I mean, look at Linux itself. Red Hat is probably one of the most famous enterprise solutions of an open source software. So
yeah, I completely
there's that
agree.
possibility.
Yeah.
It depends on if they're looking to go that route. Maybe they hear us complain about Laravel all the time, the fact that it's not really enterprise ready, and the Zen will say, or the Zen framework, now Laminas, will say maybe this is our niche. This is where we can fit in.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Now, how do you feel still as the company, DiegoDev? We have a substantial amount of projects invested in Laravel, but you're in a unique position where you actually haven't done a lot of Laravel development. Just seeing the kind of the politics around it, how do you feel about decisions that we've made with going with Laravel for certain clients and for certain projects?
Honestly, because of the politics behind it, it makes me sad that we went that route. Like the fact that so many people bash Laravel was a sign to begin with, but people bash anything, right?
Right.
The fact that it's popular is going to mean it gets bashed a lot. There's developers around me that absolutely refuse to work on Laravel and take the bashing to a whole nother level. And it's like, I really want to know more as to why. I understand the politics is one huge piece, but the actual code behind it seems pretty solid until you upgrade it via a single patch number and everything breaks.
Right.
That's frustrating. Talking with Chris last night and how Laravel is one of those, it's so easy to use that it's kind of like an entry level, let me get started programming. But when you really want to know more and code deeper, you probably should move out of it. It makes me wonder, did we just get stuck using Laravel for some reason?
Yeah.
And I think it was community at the time. We had people around us that were big into Laravel at Laravel 3 going to 4. Made us want to use it more because of that involvement. And then sticking with it, watching it grow, at that point, it's like, yeah, I want to be part of this train. I want to stay on it. It's going where I want to go. And now almost feel stuck on that train and it's out of control, going the wrong way down the tracks.
Yeah, I mean, again, I always talk about how it was like a perfect storm, especially for us as a company, is Laravel was the first framework to embrace a lot of the new workflows. It embraced Composer. It started embracing the PSRs, and it really kind of led the way. And it just kind of hit right at the time where we're starting our business, we're starting projects, we're bringing on clients. It's just like, well, if we're making a decision right now, everybody else is about 2-3 years behind. Laravel is so ahead of the curve right now that it seems to be the direction to go in. Well, now that we're 2, 3, 4, 5 years after the fact, and a lot of these a lot of these frameworks have retooled and have caught up with leveraging Composer and the PSRs. It's definitely a harder sell now. And I'll bear like most of the burden as being the decision maker on a lot of this, but I feel I think I would feel. I keep telling myself I would feel the same way no matter what framework I went with. Is that I feel
Possibly.
I feel like I would be trapped, which is not an argument not to have a framework. I've always been pro framework. I see nothing wrong with getting started with a structured framework, and it allows you to bring on developers and having a known style to adhere to. It always appealed to me.
So
I think
do you have any regrets of choosing Laravel?
I have their. I mean, now I have regrets in the sense that I think where Laravel was so far ahead of the curve on adopting some of these new ideas and philosophies, they've now fallen behind. And some of the most simple practices that people use, Laravel is just stubborn in not using them. And so that's like, it's like, God damn it, just version your stuff correctly. It's not that big of a request. Just version your stuff correctly. I think my biggest concern is from a company's perspective, like it would be nice to be able to go to my clients and say, hey, if we need help, we can get a contract with Symfony for support on the project that we implemented for you because it's a Symfony project. And Symfony can come in and give us some support. And you really can't do that with Laravel. I mean, I'm sure there are other agencies out there like us that say, hey, no, we're Laravel experts. We'll step in and help you. But that's not what I want. I want it from Laravel. I want it from Symfony. If I have a Symfony framework, I want support from Symfony. If I have a Laravel framework, I want support from Laravel. And I think that's one of the things that's hurt or that has me concerned as a company. And then the other big thing is just trying to keep up with it. Laravel is very much, always moving forward, always doing releases. And from a company perspective, it's just so difficult to stay current with Laravel. That has caused us some headache.
It wouldn't be so bad if they took semantic versioning seriously.
Yeah.
To the point where you could stay up to date on the or the patch releases. The minor releases, when they come out, you take a quick look, make sure what you have isn't going to break completely, and then you make a decision on the major releases.
Yeah.
At what point do you stop moving up on those?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Like you said, no matter what you would have chosen to begin with, you feel kind of trapped.
Yeah.
But it comes down to the politics. That, like you said, that's a huge pain in the ass.
Yeah. Yep, sure is. By the end of the day, I love coding. And Laravel definitely makes it pleasant. I wish you had opportunity to do more Laravel development because it's just really fun to code in Laravel. I enjoy it. I don't know, John.
I had the microservice out there. There's so much other work to be done that I don't get a chance to get in there and add anything to it. It's kind of like a back burner type of thing. When you got an extra few hours, do something over there. It's like, never have an extra few hours.
And exactly what we talked about. How out of date is your microservice? Because I mean, you just probably did that like within the last couple of months, and it's probably I don't want to speak for you, but I imagine a few versions behind.
Oh, I'm sure. I don't even know what version of Laravel it's using.
Yeah. So,
What else do you have going on?
I don't know, man. I don't know. I'm circling the drain here.
Like
I'm
I
ready to
said,
go to bed.
it's gonna be a short night because I was exhausted well before we started.
What did you? We didn't play racquetball today. What did you? What exhausted you? Or do I want to know?
I same old, ultimate frisbee.
It hurts my feelings that ultimate frisbee takes more out of you than racquetball, because racquetball damn well nearly kills me.
Racquetball takes a lot out of me, dude. What are you talking about?
Uh, I don't know.
Make-
I feel like still have energy after racquetball. You go, you do your little leg presses and your little planking. Meanwhile, I'm passed out on the on the bench, praying for death to come swiftly.
All I can say is if you get in shape, there's no way I'd be able to keep up with you in racquetball.
And I have always told you I am in shape, round as a shape.
If you got in a shape other than round.
Yeah, I tell you, every time baseball season gets started up, I miss the younger me. God, I miss the younger body. I miss the being able to go out and play some ball. And man, it sucks getting old. Try not to
It's
get old,
not
John.
it's not too late.
Yeah.
I mean, it takes a lot of discipline, and I I still have lots of people in their 50s, 60s, probably in their couple in their 70s playing ultimate frisbee with me,
Really?
and
Really?
many of them outrun me.
No kidding.
Yeah,
Keeping up with you and everything.
yeah.
So you did go to, I gave you a hard time about it. Actually, we blew over it last week, but you did go, San Diego does have a professional ultimate frisbee team, and you went to the season opener. How was it?
I kept trying to crowbar it in there, and you just kept talking right over last week. It was a lot of fun. The sad part is, it's not a huge sport, so they play where they can get field space. So they play at a high school football field,
Hmm.
which means they can't serve alcohol during the game.
Oh, yeah.
Uh, not that you need alcohol to enjoy it, but I, I met Spencer beforehand, and we went and got dinner, and he chose a place, and the first place he chose, he was telling me, "Oh, they have great beer." I'm like, "Okay, I'll have a beer tonight, and we'll do that." And then he switches venues. He's like, "Well, no, I really want Mexican tonight. Let's meet here." Get there, no beer. Get
Oh, really? A
over.
Mexican joint without beer?
Yeah, it was just a little place down in PB,
Hmm.
and then get over to the stadium and no beer there. Like, oh man, not that I drink a lot of beer anymore, but it was a night where I was like, oh, I'll have a beer tonight, and
The
it,
one day you were giving yourself permission to have a beer, and
it-
you couldn't get a beer.
exactly. But the game was phenomenal. Some amazing plays. We won by 2 points, which is always fun to have the home team win.
Hmm.
And then I watched the video of the second week, and it was a buzzer beater win for us.
Hmm.
Where, I mean, you got to know the sport a little bit, but our somebody on our team caught it 1 second left on the clock, and he throws the disc to the end zone. And in ultimate frisbee, as long as the disc is in the air before time runs out, whatever happens happens.
Hmm.
So he throws it to the end zone. Big group of people all jump for it. The defense, the other team, knocks it away. Actually hits it twice, and on the second time hits it to the back of the end zone, but not enough to stop it. So one of our guys was able to dive uh, and catch it for the win. It was
Yeah.
tied up until that point. Win by 1 point, buzzer beater. Fun stuff. Okay, I made that what was an exciting story to me. I turned into a very boring story. I'm sorry. I think it's time to wrap this show up.
Now you know how the rest of us feel when we try to listen to people talk about ultimate
Baseball?
frisbee.
Baseball?
Oh,
When people
ultimate
talk
frisbee.
baseball?
Baseball is awesome. My greatest memories as a child. You talked about how ultimate they play at a high school, and some of my greatest memories as a child is my dad used to take me to a minor league baseball team, the Arlington Dukes, which was they were in Arlington, Virginia, and we went to the Arlington Dukes. And at the time, I think they were a Class A team affiliated with I forget who they were affiliated with. Anyways, they played at a high school, and nowadays you go to a minor league baseball game, and it's like they have their own stadiums. They're gorgeous stadiums, and I enjoyed. I sat with a couple of minor league ball players. Like when they had double headers, the ball players would come into the stands because their families would be in the stands and eat hot dogs or something between games. And yeah, I sat with these ball players, and they were like, "Hey, why don't you come to dinner with us after the game?" And I'm young. I mean, I'm like 12, 13, and my dad is like, he's got school tomorrow. I'm like, Dad, baseball players want us to go to dinner with them. Let's go have dinner with them. But I saw Darryl Strawberry play when he was like a kid. I mean, it was just best memories. I love minor league baseball. I love baseball. I mean, you know that, and I enjoyed professional baseball, but I love minor league baseball. I almost rather watch minor league baseball than professional baseball because those guys are scrapping, man. They're working for it. All right. Well, I think this is a good. We're right at about an hour. This should be a pretty easy one to edit. So I think we'll wrap it up. I don't even know if we've had anybody watching us today.
Nobody in Discord.
Nobody helping us out in Discord, popping in messages. Hey, go get them, guys. Good show, or anything. That's
So
fine.
You want to hear something funny?
Absolutely.
You were just telling me we're just at an hour. I'm like, no, I just looked. We're at 35 minutes. No, my audio program has been recording for 35 hours.
Not recording, running, right?
Not recording, running. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like, wow, we're 35 minutes in. It's taking forever.
I didn't mention it, or we didn't notice last week, and we forgot to add everybody to the Patreon. A Patreon thing there, Buttery. Buttery's always there for us. Jeez, way to go, Buttery. We do have some more Patreons. Got the list updated. Thanks everybody for your support. New people, I will work on getting you packages out. If you're in the U.S., actually, I need to check your addresses and see where you're at, but we'll get you back some rewards.
Swag, yeah.
Swag, yeah. Matter of fact, you need to take some swag with you, John. Take some with you. All right.
PHP Tech.
Okay. Yeah. Take them to tech. Moving. Where are you moving, Buttery? Are you leaving China, or are you just moving like locally? Now we're gonna sit here and see what Buttery's up to. It's like, shit, why not, right?
We'll wrap up and we'll talk to Buttery after this.
Yeah, sounds good. All right. Thanks everybody for listening. Appreciate it. Catch you guys next week.
Sounds good. Thank you. Keep it ugly. I'm John Congdon.
I'm Eric Van Johnson. Keep it ugly. That was horrible. We'll catch you together.
We forgot how to end the show.
Funny. No music playing in the background. See what Buttery's up to. Buttery, not leaving Japan. Oh, Japan. I keep thinking you're in China for some reason. Japan. Yeah, I doubt our show airs in China.
I'm stopping local recording.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I'm exactly at 1 hour. Or, oh, cool. I'd love to go to Japan. that's was one of the carrots that was always dangled in front of me when I was at Sony, was that they'd send you to Japan for these like meetings, and I was kind of like working my way up the ranks to becoming one of the people who was anointed to go to Japan for whatever meeting it was. There was always some BS meeting that they would send people to Japan, and I was just, I couldn't wait until I became one of the people who got to go to Japan. I never made it to never made it on any of the trips. I was always bummed about that. I would so love to go to Japan. All right, are you coming to the office tomorrow?
Yes. Tis the plan. Why should I not?
Oh. I might come in late, see if the wife wants to do breakfast if I'm feeling up to it. I have just been feeling awful, but feeling better. I actually got another Everbowl today. If you ever come to San Diego, I think Everbowls are a San Diego product. Eventually they'll I'm sure go nationwide. What's that called when franchise?
So you had 2 of those today?
I had, dude. I told you this morning. You got me the one this morning, and it just felt so good on my throat and made me feel so much better. I asked my kid to go get one before they closed at 7. I'm like, can you go give me an Everbowl so I can go record tonight?
Funny.
Yeah, Everbowls are awesome, man. We should look into getting a franchise. I don't know where we'd put it, but I could definitely see investing in an Everbowl franchise. All right, I'm gonna stop the stream, everybody. Appreciate you watching.
Good night.